Well, hello and welcome back to the RevOpsCharlie channel. And today I'm really excited. We've got another edition of Globetrotters, and we're going to be focusing in on the beautiful country of Japan. And for those that this is the first time you've listened to or watched a Globetrotters series, this is where we get the opportunity to meet and speak with someone that sells or has launched a technology company in a specific region around the world. And the specific goal is to help you as the founder or the revenue leader of maybe a US or European headquartered technology company to understand what it takes to launch and build your go-to-market in that region. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Kei Ichikawa, who joins us. He was one of the first sales people on the ground in Japan for Tableau, also I believe for Medallia, and brings a wealth of experience. So Kei, welcome to the channel.
Hi, Charlie. Thanks for inviting me.
Excellent. Can't wait to get into this one. Now, so let's go really high level just to start with. I have to say for myself, I've never had the opportunity to travel to Japan, but every one of my friends that has been there has said it's just an amazing experience. So for those that, like me, haven't traveled, maybe you can just share a little bit about the country. You know, how big is it? How many people are there? And any sort of high-level background.
Got it. Okay, in Japan, well, it's I believe it's big enough, but I think Japan is a little bigger than the United Kingdom, and as big as the California state. And
wow.
there are 120 people. And well, I just watched the Globetrotters series in Nigeria, and they said they said it's the population is quite young. Japan is the opposite. It's
Okay.
getting older, so more elderly people and say smaller young generations. So we have some unique challenges. Probably as just same as the other kind of countries like the UK, US, and those countries, though European countries as well. But we are tackling those challenges. So that's why I feel IT is a key to work with those unique challenges.
No, that's like you said, 120 million population, which is about twice as big as the UK, but an aging population with less people having children. So that definitely brings in unique challenges. And then I was seeing that about 8 million of those are in Tokyo, being the biggest city, but there's plenty of other big cities as well.
Yes, there are several relatively big cities like Kyoto, Osaka, and Nagoya, and Sapporo is recently a popular tourist destination. But the center of business is Tokyo, and usually global companies, when they get into the market, they set up their first office in Tokyo.
And is there a particular regional area of Tokyo that's a sort of business district?
Well, areas like Shinjuku and Roppongi were popular, but recently more and more companies set up their Tokyo office near Tokyo Station. The area called Marunouchi or Yaesu.
And so, Kate, I wonder if you can talk us through a little bit about starting off with Tableau. So I think on your LinkedIn profile, it says you're the first salesperson on the ground. How did you go about getting that job? Was that being hired from the US, or what was the background to that? Because I'm sure for people that are thinking about hiring their first salesperson in Japan, there'd be some great lessons from that.
Wow, thanks for asking me. Wow, that conjures me of the early days at Tableau. But also, let me start a little bit high level. So when an American and European company considers to expand internationally, they seek some options like European market and Asia Pacific market. And when they think about the Asia Pacific or APAC market, there are several relatively big country from the economic standpoint. That should be Japan, Singapore, and Australia.
Mm.
China is of course the biggest country in the region, but for especially cloud-based SaaS companies, it is a bit difficult to enter the China market directly. So Japan is often the biggest market for those companies. So when they come to APAC, Japan could be one of the few countries they set up offices. But the unique point about Japan is not many people speak English in this country. So often, countries set up the first office in Singapore or Australia, cities like Sydney or Melbourne or those cities. And uh, after uh, setting up some good foundations of business in those countries, they come to Japan.
Mm.
So a few companies have their APAC headquarters in Japan, but I think more companies have ones in Singapore. So looking back my 20s, I worked in Singapore and I was there for 4 years and actually was hired there and sent back to Japan.
Mm.
So I worked for a company named Autodesk when I was in Singapore, and my colleague named Sasha van der Ziden, he moved to Tableau before me. Just come and chat with me,
Bring the
and I
friends
visit
along.
him. Yep. Somehow I was put through the the room of the VP of APAC and
Mm.
asked, and the guy, JY, asked me, well, what do you think of working in Japan? Um, do you want to work in Singapore or consider Japan? And I said, well, as long as the job is interesting and exciting, I'm fine.
Mm.
Then he asked me to come to the office in 3 days to do a demo interview, and the process just went smoothly. And I came back to Japan when they started their business in Japan.
Mm.
So I
It's
was hired in Singapore and started uh, Tableau business in Japan with other two people, country manager and the first pre-sales person.
mm. And were they hired locally or did they come across from Singapore?
I think they were hired locally. I think the first hire was a pre-sales engineer with a lot of experience. And also the country manager was also the industry veteran for almost 30 years of experience.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing. It reminds me a bit of Jens, who spoke on the Germany edition.
Mm-hmm.
He himself, if I remember rightly, was hired in
Mm-hmm.
America and then was given the opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
move back to his home country of Germany. And so I think that's great advice for any founder or revenue leader. If you're thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of where you want to be, then there are plenty of people working in your domestic market that come from those countries, and you can get them embedded in the culture, the product, the team, and then they make excellent some transfers to go back to their home country at that point. And then, so thinking about those sort of early launch days where obviously Japan has its own language, needs everything translated, it's very culturally different. So in terms of launching a company like a Tableau or a Medallia or any technology company, there's some immediate things that were different for Japan that had to be invested in to get this stuff translated and positioned for the Japanese market.
Got it. Yeah, localization would be one of the important keys to get into Japan market. I think almost 1% of the population speak English well, and most people just speak Japanese, and some are a bit allergic to speaking in English. I believe they are just shy, but bringing English content directly to Japanese customers simply doesn't work. So we need to bring everything in Japanese. So the early members of those global companies in Japan need to understand English and need to translate the sales materials and the messages from abroad and everything into Japanese, and then bring them to the prospective customers. That's what we did in the early days. Thankfully, Tableau localized the software itself before we joined, so we just needed to translate sales materials only.
Oh, that's good. So yeah, so the product was ready to go, and then it's just about the web page, some sales materials, the first call deck, and contracts as well. Was there an issue around Japanese
contract
law?
was English, but so that it was all in English, and we needed to conclude agreements in English. So I often breached Japanese customers and the headquarters. So I translate everything into Japanese, and we don't call it formal. So this is just a supporting document, but we're gonna provide those too, so you can use that for your reference and get their response in Japanese and tell that to the headquarters, legal department in English, and those back and forth often happened.
And you mentioned earlier about there was a country manager that was hired locally. Have you seen examples where companies have brought over American leaders or British leaders and they've led that team? And what kind of challenges around language or culture can that bring?
Well, sometimes we have leaders from foreign countries. I assume sometimes it works, but a bit difficult. Something a bit difficult about Japan was the communication and the decision-making process of Japanese companies and people I think a bit different from countries like the US. The response of Japanese companies and people are sometimes quite high context, meaning they are not say not that straightforward, and sometimes don't say their true feelings. One time when I reported to Australian boss, one of our customers, large telco company, told us, "Wow, this looks like a good solution. We like to consider that for future use." After the meeting, my boss told us, "Wow, they said they like that, so let's go forward and provide a quote." But the rest of the team was not that, how to say, they were, had a bit mixed feeling. It seems they said they're going to consider that means not now. So those, I would say, kind of cultural, say, friction sometimes happens. So to cope with Japanese companies, I think understanding the cultural aspect will be quite crucial, and that's the point I think important for doing business in Japan. So someone from abroad works, but the person should know or learn how Japanese people communicate or make a decision. Decision making is another aspect, and there's there's no, I would say, strong leader making decision, decide everything. Usually, the managing committee, and there should be 8 to 10 people, and to make a decision, we need to get everyone's agreement. So we need our people named champions and ask them to talk to every decision maker and influencers one by one to get the consensus. So
That's really interesting, because I wrote down, preparing for our chat, about champions, economic sponsors, influencers, because my limited understanding of the cultures is very hierarchical, and that a lot of people would not feel comfortable to say what they think without sort of permission from above. But what you're saying there is that it is a bit more collaborative and getting everyone's opinion,
yes.
and then the
Yes.
person at the top will say, right, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. So it's difficult to actually find out who's the real decision maker. Sometimes the president, sometimes not not that person. So one time when I worked with a Japanese enterprise, everything went well, and we talked to the IT department, the CEO, and everyone. But in the last final phase of the negotiation, a person living in the countryside, I believe he was VP of something, said, "Oh well, I didn't hear anything. I don't want to agree with that, and then we don't need that." And sometimes that happened. At the time, my country manager flew to that prefecture and got the agreement from that person, so that went okay. But sometimes that happens. I think that's important.
As a technology company selling into the industry, are there particular industries or segments that are strong in Japan? We think about manufacturing, think about technology, but are there specific segments that you focused on?
Well, I think the I think it's quite similar to other countries. So telecommunications companies and financial banking and securities companies and insurance, of course. But I think something typical about Japan is a strong manufacturing market. There are several automotive companies like Toyota, Honda, Mazda, Subo, and something. And some other B2B and B2C manufacturing companies like Sony, Panasonic. So those verticals are all important, but I think the number of large manufacturers are one of the key difference of Japan from other markets.
And thinking about being a founder or a revenue leader, what should I think about pricing in the market? So if I've got my dollar price list for the US, would I be keeping a similar level of price in yen, or higher or lower? How does that play out?
I think we keep the same pricing in Japan from the home country. Usually we set the exchange rate every year. Sometimes it's decided in the beginning of the year, or some companies change that quarterly. But usually just 150 yen per dollar or something like that. And it's not that different. I think the usual standard exchange rate would be applied.
And coming towards the end of our chat, when you think about like sort of common mistakes, either that you felt that your team might have made when you were rolling out, or that you've seen others. We've talked a little bit about language, talked a little bit about culture, but are there common mistakes that you've seen companies make when they land in Japan and have to start again?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. Let me think it over. Wow, what is that?
I mean, I would think for some countries,
Yep.
it's just not having that understanding of the culture. I know we've talked about that, but coming in thinking that maybe product market fit in your home country is immediately going to turn into product market fit in a new country, and just why aren't people buying this thing? And often it's just going back to the basics and just making sure that the product solves a need for this new group of users.
Yeah. I think the only point that we need to take care is the cultural and decision-making aspect. But people understand the technology well. Sometimes it's a bit slow in making decision, but I don't think there's not that huge difference. So, basically, I think we can just go back to basic and do what we should do as a software company or technology company.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to work for a couple of companies that have had Japanese teams, and they've been US companies. And one of the things when I've always felt as a European felt sad for Japanese colleagues, but also Australians, was whenever we had an all hands call, you had the US on at sort of 9 o'clock in the morning, Europeans on at 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, and Japan will catch it on a recording because everyone's asleep. And so have you felt that as like it's difficult to feel part of the core team because you're just on this different time zone?
Yes, I think that sometimes happened. Yes, I think it did. Well, yeah, some companies have that's the all hands call 3 times a day for people in the US and Europe and Asia. But sometimes we are a bit behind or ahead. I'm not sure, but not real time and sometimes happened a little bit. But I think not many people feel that as only I think 5 to 10% of the employees in the enterprise software industry, even they work for global companies, they don't speak English, so they need subtitles or translations to watch and understand those calls. So that's the one of the so language and the business customers something we need to overcome when getting to Japan. And I hope that gap becomes smaller for the next generation's term.
Well, Kei, thank you so much for sharing a bit about the country and your experiences that I know will be so valuable for people that are watching. I wonder if you want to share a little bit about what you're doing now and how you're helping businesses as they're expanding their sales and go-to-market in the Japanese region, and how do people get hold of you?
Thank you. Well, as I said, it is that's so I worked for the enterprise software business and the software industry for almost 10 years, but found the business is a little bit kind of quite different from the traditional Japanese job market. So I helped people get into the global enterprise software business. That's my job, a recruiting agency for young generations. That means when they start to seek opportunities in the software market, they can learn everything from our recruiting media called Challengers Academy, and they come to us to seek some advice and job opportunities. As there's such gap between the Japanese job market and the foreign job market. So that's what we help candidates with, and we connect those candidates to the global technology companies. So the great pool of people is what we have. And in the future, I like to connect those great talents to the companies that are trying to enter the Japanese market. Yeah, that's what we do, and that's what I'd like to do
Fantastic.
toward the future.
So if any of our watchers are considering moving to the Japanese market and thinking, but how do I find great salespeople? Kei is the man to speak to.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Always so happy to help.
Well, we'll share your contact details and your LinkedIn in the show notes, and I'm sure people will be happy to get in touch with you. So Kei, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It's really been insightful, and especially for me,
it was fun
for a country I've not been to. Fantastic.
Yep.
Thanks, Kei.
I hope you come to Japan in the near future, and I bring you around.
Oh, brilliant. I'd love that. The live tour would be fantastic. I'll speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.